Beijing is going to witness the coming together of two global superpowers and their heads. But the question is, and the discussion is not about that. The discussion is why Donald Trump is calling China his friend. The question is why Trump has flipped yet again. And when Trump is singing the tune of friendship, why Chinese president is constantly warning him, telling him to keep straight, otherwise it is going to affect their relationship very badly. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh, and in today's session we are going to explore the dimensions around this Beijing Summit which is happening between United States and China, because a question here arises that has US forgotten China? A question arises here that has US forgotten India, that they have decided to move towards China? Why China is sitting stern and straight and constantly warning US about multiple things, but US is telling that they are great friends. So we will be looking into all these details, starting with understanding that what exactly this summit was for. So definitely when we talk about Beijing Summit, which is happening between US and China as of now, it has key agendas, discussions on trade, tech, and most importantly Iran war. But amidst that, we are also seeing that China has gone ahead and warned US about involvement around Taiwan, how US is meddling and troubling China's presence there. And US, on the other note, instead of giving back to China, US and its president, they are saying that it's an honor to be here. The friendship is blooming, we are great friends. And let me remind you, these were very similar words that were said for Indian Prime Minister also, India also, just 1 year back. So what exactly has changed here? We are going to understand that as well. Another interesting thing that unfolded during this summit as of now, even after such an extended warm hand from US, that China went ahead and warned US of Thucydides Trap. Now when we are talking about the Thucydides Trap, it talks about that when there is a rising global power and there is a dominant global power. So rising global power is being referred to here as China, and a dominant global power, that is US, there is a possibility of confrontations and military escalation. So when China is warning about that, it also clearly seems that the possibility does exist, but let us cooperate and avoid that possibility. So we have seen that Xi Jinping has also clearly said that please be aware of the Thucydides trap and avoid it, so as to ensure that we are able to mutually coexist and grow. So this is just a warning again, Cold War style confrontation that US and China should not get involved in. So this clearly shows that when we are talking about this meeting, the world is watching this closely, because we are seeing that this summit is happening in the time of global instability, and this is where India's stakes are also higher, because we were branding ourselves as China plus one alternative. But if China remains the only possibility, then what does happen to our strategic importance? What does happen, that what kind of reset that takes place in India's roles, especially in Indo-Pacific balance, and so much more. Now when we are looking at this, the first thing we need to establish here is that why are we placing so much importance on this meeting? As I mentioned that yes, two global superpowers are coming together, but any sort of certainty that can be drawn from this meeting is expected. Economically, it holds a lot of importance, because we have to see that we are talking about 43% of global GDP. So any trade decisions that might be taken here will have a ripple effect across the globe. It will affect the global inflation, it will affect the supply chains, financial markets, and so much more. So just to give you an example here, if you remember, the beginning of this tariff war was not US, it was US and China. So when two superpowers try to navigate amongst themselves, there is no way that the ripple effect will not be felt across the globe. Apart from this, we have to also acknowledge the energy crisis that we are looking at. As a globe, Strait of Hormuz being blocked, we see 20% of global oil supply being blocked, 30% of LNG supply being blocked. Anything that can come out of this situation is expected because US is on the other end and China has always been, even if not upfront, but an ally. China is the lifeline of Iran's trade as of now. They are holding Iran's trade, otherwise their economy would have crumbled way back. So in this, we are also expecting that if we want some stability in West Asia, China can play a huge role, and China also wants it because biggest supplier towards Asia, including India and China, comes from Strait of Hormuz itself. So a lot can change, unfold for the whole globe in this summit. That is why all eyes are here. Another factor that we immediately need to look into is about that how the technology competition would be managed, be it in terms of AI governance. If you are talking about AI, two leading countries, US and China, semiconductor supply chains dominated by China, US trying to cut across and get above it. Rare earth minerals, again dominance of China. And when we are looking at this, again you have to talk about the Thucydides Trap that China was talking about. That even though there might be competition and conflict, that should not go up to military escalation. And another point that is expected to be highlighted, and it has been highlighted by China, that is Taiwan. Taiwan wants independence and US has been fueling that fire, and China would never want that to unfold for Taiwan, and this is against the sovereignty issues of China which should be handled on their own. So if any conflict arises, it is going to affect the global trade routes further. This is where I would like to highlight another important strait, that is Taiwan Strait. Now once we have established the importance of this summit, this is where we need to directly look into the fact that why US is moving towards China, and this will also give us a clear insight into why India is not being considered in this situation. So the first reason here is when we are looking at the Iran war situation, this is where India is trying hard to maintain a neutral ground. Because all the parties involved, no matter on what side, India is engaged with them. They have diplomatic relationships. Iran, Israel, US, then Gulf nation, not just diplomatic relations, strategic relations, trade relations and so much more. So this is where US needs somebody who is a stakeholder, who can be non-neutral and actually bring some stability to the West Asia crisis. And China is a very good option here. Why? Because China has leverage over Iran and US can use that leverage through mutual cooperation to bring the West Asian stability. If this comes in, trade stability is also given. The earlier tariff issue can be resolved, the business predictability can come, and also the whole Strait of Hormuz disruption might also be addressed. And when we are talking about US-China, nobody is nobody's friend, nobody is nobody's enemy, everybody is looking for their own interests. Biggest interest is the money interest, and this is where US firms know that they are still heavily dependent on Chinese market, they need access to it. Any kind of export ban that they have seen in past is going to only harm US, not help it. Other than that, AI, semiconductor, rare earth minerals, all of these are interconnected, very important, and interconnectivity between these two nations is also equally important to ensure this movement. So does that mean India is not important? Not at all. There are scenarios that India can be more helpful, more strategic than China ever was and ever is. For example, Indo-Pacific strategy. The whole idea of Quad is to counter China's presence. India remains central to Quad. India remains central to the maritime security in Indian Ocean. India remains a central force in always countering China. India will always play a huge economic role as a China plus one manufacturing strategy, where China cannot be the only place to be dependent at. If we are looking at India, we also have to look the semiconductor and electronics investments that have come through US towards us. So this clearly establishes that India still matters. India is a reliable democratic partner, the location is an advantage, and we offer a fast-paced growing economy in terms of consumption, demand, expenditure, which China is not offering. So as of now, it is very clear that yes, there are reasons to go ahead and talk to China, but definitely not in order to replace India. The only reason in front of us is the fact that if their tensions dial down, a lot good for the globe can be done. But at the same time, let us not forget the past. China can never replace India because US and China are not friends. They never have been, they never will be. They have constant rivalry, major tensions such as Taiwan issue which has already been raised, AI rivalry which has been addressed, rare earth controls, military competition. This cannot change between them. So what we are looking at is just economic cooperation as of now. The trust between them is going nowhere. They used to mistrust each other, they still do. They are just looking to gain some benefits by shaking hands together. Now that was all from the perspective of this summit. I will be leaving you here with a prelims practice question. Let me know the answer in the comment section, and also a reflection question. What are your thoughts? That what are the things that India is facing as challenges to come up as a real, honest China plus one manufacturing alternative? Let me know the answer to this and the question I asked in the comment section. Thank you so much.